Mel Kiper Jr., the once great Mel Kiper Jr., has lost his fastball. He may have even lost his breaking ball, too. And the changeup doesn't look great. The whole arm might be shot. What happened to the former GOAT of NFL draft coverage? And why does he hate the Texas Longhorns so much? We'll discuss on today's edition of the BK Show. What's up, guys and gals? Welcome in to another edition of the BK Show. This is your one-stop shop for Texas Longhorns content on YouTube. I'm your host, BK Brad Kellner. Mel Kiper Jr. released his latest 2025 NFL mock draft earlier this week, and it's not good. And it's not just that I disagree with it, it's that the entire industry disagrees with it. Mel Kiper's been covering the draft for a long time. He's a legend, the godfather of NFL draft coverage. The draft is so much bigger because of him, and I'm grateful to him. I think we're all grateful to him because of how much of a hand he's had in helping the NFL draft grow over the last few decades. But over the last few years, Mel Kiper Jr. has turned into a hot take artist. He does work at ESPN after all, the company that at one point employed Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, Max Kellerman, Kendrick Perkins, just to name a few. So maybe that's company policy. Maybe he's just falling in line. Who knows? But it seems like a lot of Mel Kiper's mock drafts aren't even predictions anymore. They're just vehicles to get people riled up and to get people talking about the draft. And if that's the case, congrats, Mel. It worked. Congrats, ESPN. You got me. The pre-combine mock that Mel Kiper just released is terrible. And the most terrible part about it involves a Texas Longhorn. Matter of fact, a few terrible parts about this involve multiple Texas Longhorns. And it's funny, I actually saw a recent picture of Mel Kiper Jr. Maybe this explains why he hates the Texas Longhorns so much. Look who he's hanging out with there. Yeah, you didn't realize it was Mel in that picture, did you? Well, actually, it was. Mel Kiper Jr. hanging out with Oklahoma. Maybe that's the issue. Oh, wait. Do I have another one? Do we have another picture of Mel Kiper Jr. here? Am I smart enough with technology to figure out how to do this? There we go. Yeah, Mel Kiper Jr. It's not Mike Elko you see there. That's hair gel hanging out, wearing that A&M sweatshirt. All right, enough with the jokes. We'll start with Kelvin Banks, because this is where the most Texas disrespect lies. Kelvin Banks is more than likely going to be the first Longhorn off the board in April. He's regarded as one of the top two offensive linemen in this class. There are plenty of people who have him number one. Will Campbell from LSU is kind of the other offensive lineman in the mix. Feels pretty close to a 1 and 1A situation. More mock drafts have Campbell going in front of Kelvin Banks. If you want to say Kelvin Banks is a close second, I can live with that. But I've seen Banks in mock drafts going as high as number 4 to the New England Patriots. Number 4. What about some of the other super well-known mock drafters? Daniel Jeremiah, NFL.com. He's got Banks going number 10 to Chicago. Bucky Brooks, NFL.com. Same thing. Banks going 10th to Chicago. The Athletic, in their most recent mock draft, Kelvin Banks going 11 to San Francisco. Tom Fornelli, CBS, has Banks going 7th to the New York Jets. Again, pretty reputable names right there. According to the NFL mock draft database, the most common draft position for Kelvin Banks is number 10 overall to the Chicago Bears. Where does Mel Kiper have the Texas left tackle going? About 25th. 25th to the Houston Texans, which would be a great get for the Houston Texans. Are you kidding me? What a steal that would be. I mean, Nick Caserio should be running up the draft card to Roger Goodell in Green Bay if Kelvin Banks is still on the board when the Texans are picking at 25. They need offensive line help. That'd be a great get for them. But that's not what this video is about. That is the lowest I've seen Kelvin Banks go in a mock draft by a pretty wide margin. Okay, why, Mel? Mel writes these stories for ESPN.com, and he posts some reasoning for why he has each player going where he has them going. Here's what he said, quote, "This might seem low for Banks, but I'll be watching his height measurement at the combine this week. If he's shorter than 6'4", He might have to kick inside in the pros, end quote. He goes on to talk about the fit in Houston and how it would help C.J. Stroud, which, again, it obviously would. But in terms of why Kelvin Banks is falling that far, it's the height. That's the only thing that Kiper brings up. Kelvin Banks was listed at 6'4" at Texas. Mel thinks he might be 6'3" and 9/10. It's making it sound like Kelvin Banks is 5'2" out there. But apparently, the difference between 6'3" and 6'4" is the difference between Kelvin Banks going number 10 or number 25 in the eyes of hair gel. Size matters. The ladies were on to something. Apparently 1 inch means a whole lot. And don't get me wrong, that stuff does matter to NFL teams. Height, size, arm length, it does. But what are we doing, Mel? Like, do you not watch the games anymore? Do you not crunch tape at all? Did you not see Kelvin Banks win every single offensive line award you could win in college football in 2024? Do you not see his stats over his 3-year Texas career? He allowed 1 sack in 538 pass block snaps last year. In 2022, his freshman season, which included a game against Will Anderson Jr. at Alabama, Kelvin Banks didn't allow a sack. He allowed just 1 quarterback hit on 456 pass blocking snaps. This guy has been a beast from the second he stepped foot on the Texas campus. Just about everybody else has him very close to a top 10 lock, if not that, top 15 at worst. Because of what he did at Texas, what he did in the SEC this past season, what he did against a bunch of guys who were dominating the league, like Will Anderson Jr., speaking of the Texans. He's not going to be there at 25, Mel. What are we doing here? If a bunch of mock drafters were selecting this, then okay, then I'm wrong. I'd be confused, but hey, those guys have a lot of contacts around the league. They know what they're talking about way more than I know what I'm talking about. They must know something about Kelvin Banks that I don't. But that's not what's happening here. This is a total disrespect to Kelvin Banks by one person, and that's Mel Kiper Jr. And I was thinking, all right, maybe it's a Kelvin Banks only deal. Maybe Banks pissed in Kiper's Cheerios one time or something like that. Who knows? But it's not. There's more Texas Longhorns who are getting disrespected by Mel Kiper Jr. What about Matthew Golden? You know, the guy who led the SEC in receiving touchdowns and was third in receiving yards this past season. His average draft position on that NFL mock draft database that I talked about, which compiles every mock draft from reputable people on the internet, the average position for Matthew Golden, 22nd overall. Pretty safely in the first round, wouldn't you say? Where does Mel Kiper Jr. have Matthew Golden going? He doesn't. It's only a first-round mock. Matthew Golden's name isn't in it. None of the first 32 picks of the NFL draft are going to be Matthew Golden, according to Mel. Bucky Brooks has him going 25th. Daniel Jeremiah has him going 30th. Hell, somebody at Pro Football Focus has Matthew Golden going 7th overall. I think that's crazy. I'd love to see it happen. But 7th overall. And again, the average is 22. So pretty safely in the first round. Mel doesn't have him going anywhere in the first round. He only has 3 wide receivers going on night 1 of the draft, too, which feels incredibly low to me. Matthew Golden obviously isn't one of them. Luther Burden out of Mizzou isn't one of them. I would definitely take the over on 3 receivers going on night 1 of the draft. But Mel Kiper Jr. doesn't feel that way, and he doesn't give Matthew Golden a lot of love either. Jahdae Barron, the other Longhorn who is likely going to have his name called in night 1, on night 1. He did make the cut. He was picked 30th overall to the Buffalo Bills. I also saw Mel Kiper in his description say that Jahdae Barron was one of his favorite players in the class, even though Mel Kiper has Jahdae Barron going below his average positioning on that mock draft database and going below most other mock drafters out there. So maybe I'm biased. Hell, I know I'm biased. I went to Texas. I'm a Texas fan. If you know me, you know this channel, you know what I'm about. But the other guys who cover the NFL draft, they're not biased, and they agree with me. Mel Kiper Jr. is criminally underrating these Longhorns in the 2025 draft class. I'm not sure why, but I think it's safe to say that Mel Kiper Jr. hates the Texas Longhorns. What say you? Comment below with your thoughts. Will Kelvin Banks be there for the Houston Texans at 25? Will Matthew Golden fall out of the first round? How many horns do you think will go on Thursday night when we get to the NFL draft? Comment below with your thoughts. Be sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel as well. Thank y'all so much for watching. Remember, when you watch the BK Show, you rule. Talk to y'all tomorrow.